Hi everyone, thanks for joining in for vlog number 2. This is Marianne, mental health social worker and certified hypnotist, coming to you from my mental health counselling and hypnotherapy practice, continuing the discussion today on anxiety. So in vlog number 2, I'm going to be defining exactly what anxiety is, and I'll also explore what happens to our body on a physiological level when we are in a high state of anxiety. And I'll briefly touch on some coping mechanisms that we can use when we are in that high state of anxiety. So what is anxiety? In simple terms, anxiety can be defined as persistent and ongoing feelings of distress, fear, apprehension and worry that impact on the individual's daily functioning. And as I explored in vlog number 1, anxiety is the single most prevalent mental health disorder here in Australia, with 1 in 4 people living with anxiety at any one time. So I thought it might be a bit helpful to explore what happens to our body on a physiological level when we're in a high state of anxiety. I guess, understanding can often equal the ability to cope with things a little better. So that's my reasoning behind this explanation. So when we are in a high state of anxiety, we go into what is known as fight or flight. Now, I'm sure most of you out there have heard of fight or flight. It is an inbuilt survival mechanism that human beings have. So if you think of when someone is under threat, perhaps say in a bushfire, they go into fight or flight, which means they get ready to fight the threat or they get ready to get the hell out of there. And in response to fight or flight, our system produces 2 stress hormones known as cortisol and adrenaline. Now, these stress hormones are needed to give us the kick in the butt to be able to fight the threat or to get out of there. Unfortunately, when we are in a high state of anxiety, we also go into fight or flight, which means we also produce the stress hormones cortisol and adrenaline. Now, obviously, when we are in a high state of anxiety, we are not under any immediate threat. We may feel like we are. We may feel very distressed and we may feel very uncomfortable because of our anxiety, but generally there is no immediate threat. But unfortunately, the mind is a very powerful thing, and because when we're anxious we go into fight or flight and our body produces stress and cortisol, our mind convinces us, or our anxiety, I like to say, lies to us and convinces us that we are under threat. So in response to the production of cortisol and adrenaline, some changes occur in our body. So we may feel our heart beating a little faster, we may feel our blood pressure rise, our system's producing more blood, there's more blood going around our system. We might have a bit of an upset tummy, we might feel a bit weak in the legs, and we might feel like we don't need to eat and we don't need to sleep. Now, some of these symptoms are what's needed when there is a threat. If you think about fighting a bushfire or running away from a bushfire, as in fight or flight, well then things like sleep and not needing to eat are probably ideal because you do need to go into that survival mode. But obviously when we are anxious, we're not under threat, so we don't need to be going into survival mode. But as I said, unfortunately, our mind is a powerful thing and it convinces us that we do need to go into this survival mode. So generally people who are anxious do have a low appetite and often feel like they don't need to sleep. So how do we manage this? The key is quietening the adrenaline and quietening the cortisol. So trying to reduce the production of the cortisol and the adrenaline is the key to reducing our anxiety. So how can we do this? I find, as an anxiety sufferer myself, working with my breath probably the most helpful when I'm in a high state of anxiety, whether that be just doing some deep breathing or focusing on counting my breaths. People really underrate working with the breath. but it is very helpful. If it's something that you keep trying, it's something that can work. Another thing that could be helpful is meditation. Sometimes people probably might be too far gone with their anxious thoughts or feeling really anxious, so that they're not in a great place to do meditation. But there's some great guided meditation apps from the App Store that I find very helpful, so that's an option as well. Some gentle exercise, maybe going for a walk or some yoga can help. I find doing high energy stuff like running or HIIT type training, that just sends my adrenaline and my cortisol into overdrive. For some people, that kind of training does work when they're feeling highly anxious, but for me it doesn't. I've just got to participate in some general gentle exercise, but everybody's different, of course. Distraction's another good one, so if you can find something to get out of your head, because the thoughts can be really quite powerful. Those unhelpful thinking styles can be really quite powerful when you are in a high state of anxiety. So distraction is a really good one. You know, there's different things that may work for different people. You know, talking to a friend, perhaps watching something on TV, listening to some music, even writing stuff down might be helpful. And just generally practicing mindfulness. So if you are able to get out of your own head and try and live in the moment, you know, just practicing some mindfulness can help. But I will talk about mindfulness more in some upcoming videos. So I hope you guys have found that helpful today. You know, for me, I think having an awareness, you know, I know if I have that adrenaline pumping through my system when I'm feeling anxious, and I'm just able to say to myself, okay, you've got some adrenaline, you're feeling really anxious, what do you need to do? So I think just having that awareness and knowing that you can manage it, you can put some strategies in, whether that be your breathing, your meditation, some gentle exercises, or some distraction. So feel free to comment. You guys might have some other helpful strategies that help when you're in a high state of anxiety. And until next time,